Welcome to Issues. I am your host, Richard Smith. Issues is a program that deals with the community. We often have community individuals here with us discussing interesting topics. This week we have John Bronson and Debbie Ray Rivers. Some of you may have already seen them on television. They are celebrities now in Bermuda, but they're here on a very serious and a very important topic, child abuse. Let's get right to it. John, it's my understanding that you're the executive director?
I'm one of the executive directors, yes.
And Debbie Ray, you are the founder and also executive director, am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Now, SCARS, I believe it's an acronym. What are the words, John?
SCARS stands for Saving Children and Revealing Secrets. And the idea is that, when a child has been violated through sexual abuse, it's a difficult challenge to reveal the secret.
Yeah.
And it's a secret that is not only held by the child, but many times is concealed by the community.
And Debbie, the mission, what is the mission of SCARS?
The mission of SCARS is to reduce the risk of child sexual abuse and to be an advocate and a voice for children who've been sexually molested as well as their affected families.
Now, according to the newspaper, SCARS is one of the newest charities here in Bermuda. Was it difficult, and either one of you can answer, was it difficult starting this charity in terms of getting funding, and especially the message in order to get that out there? Was that difficult?
I mean, the journey to the birth of SCARS did have its challenges, but the issue in its own right definitely presented itself as one that was worthy to be granted charitable status. I mean, everything that you do, whether it's informing a new charity, has its bumps in the roads, and we did encounter bumps in the road. But one of the things that I would say is it's through Debbie's relentless compassion for this issue that gave the drive and the energy to really move forward with forming SCARS as an organization to advocate for children that have been sexually abused. So I mean, I really have to give Debbie credit for her compassion and her relentless spirit to see this come to fruition.
Debbie, John mentioned your passion. So where did this come from?
Well, Richard, my family was affected by this crime committed by a trusted family member, and as I went through the painful journey and our family went through this painful journey, we realized that this crime affects many people and many families in Bermuda and all over the world, and because of the shame and the guilt that's attached to this issue, people weren't comfortable talking about it. It was almost like a taboo subject, and I just felt that we desperately needed to start the conversation in order to try to stop it.
Yeah. What kind of reception have you had in Bermuda? I don't know if you go around to schools, but what kind of reception have you had?
John, did you want to answer that?
Well, I mean, the reception to the message of SCARS has been overwhelmingly positive. We have been fortunate enough to have the opportunity to speak to many schools in Bermuda. We're up to 12. We have a lot of work to do in that regard with a program that we designed called SAFE, which stands for SCARS Arms Family Through Education. That program is specifically directed to the PTAs of the school and provides the parents with a toolkit of information about what they should know in terms of safeguarding and protecting their children. We also have another program which is called Prevent Now. And Prevent Now really is an introductory documentary of childhood stories, childhood survivors of sexual abuse that we use to create awareness and actually spark the impetus for people to be trained in our Stewards of Children training program, which is an evidence-based training program through the darkness to light, which teaches all participants how to recognize, prevent, and react responsibly to the issue of child sexual abuse.
Okay. You mentioned a training program. How extensive is it, and is it 1 week, 2 weeks? What are some of the areas that they cover that you may not have already mentioned?
Yes, Darkness to Light Stewards of Children is a 3-hour training program. and basically it involves also victims who are now adults telling their story, plus law enforcement, doctors.
Listen, you said victims. Now, here in Bermuda, there are individuals who have been victimized that are willing to come to a training session and come in front of people and say...
Well, no, it's actually a video that's...
Video, oh,
sorry,
okay,
it's
okay.
a video presentation broken into 3 parts.
Okay.
And it basically gives you 7 steps of how to best protect your children. And it gives you a toolkit of information that trains people, like John said, to recognize, prevent, and react responsibly to the issue. And it uses law enforcement, doctors, even attorneys for victims, psychologists that have treated sex offenders. It's just everybody's view on, and it is proven to change attitudes and behaviors towards child sexual abuse.
My research indicates that Argus had a role to play in your training program. What role are they playing, or do they play?
Argus, along with a few other good corporate sponsors, have generously provided their training facilities and donated that to us to conduct our Stewards of Children training, which we now do once a month. And that's just providing the facilities. They also have provided financial support to the work that we're doing with SCARS. But I think it would be fair to mention other organizations like Hiscox, the Courthouse Gym, Orbis Investment Management, and I think also, Richard, it's also important to mention individuals that have invested their time and energy to raise money for SCARS. We have one person, Richard O'Connell, and a group of cyclists that cycled across Europe to raise money for SCARS. We have another lady who used the International Race Week Half Marathon to run and raise money for SCARS. We have is it the Guild Society?
Yes, the stitching group.
The Bermuda Stitchery. They had a stitch-a-thon to raise money for SCARS. We had another individual who had, to celebrate her birthday, jazz-a-thon to raise money for SCARS. And these are individuals who actually believe in the mission and the work that we're doing. And so, they have taken up their generous time and energy to be financial supporters. So, we're particularly appreciative of the work that good citizens and good corporate citizens have offered to help us in our mission.
I can see that your message truly is growing. But earlier on, you were talking about the secret. Now, why do children keep this a secret? You would expect that if someone violates them, they might want to run to their mother, their father, their granny, someone, and say, this is what happened. So why is it kept a secret?
Well, there are a few reasons, Richard. One of which could be they're just confused. Children are not mini adults. So they don't know between right and wrong. Sometimes they don't even know it's wrong. It could be because they really don't understand personal boundaries if they haven't been taught that. They could feel ashamed, embarrassed, guilty, they could feel like they won't be believed. That's a really big one, especially, if it's somebody in the family or somebody you trust. Child sexual abuse, the research has shown that 30 to 40% of abusers are family members. And 50 to 60% are people who are in positions of trust. And really 10% are strangers. So, for a child to have to reveal that, it's very difficult.
So based on those statistics, most people that are child abusers are people that the child or the children already know.
Love
exactly
and
right.
trust.
So is that one reason why the child may be hesitant to go and tell the mother, their father, or someone that, this close friend has abused them, because the parents may not really believe them? Because they may say, how can Cousin John or Aunt Sue do something like that? Mentioning Aunt Sue, most sexual crime against children, does your statistics show, is it male who are mostly abusers, or female, or is it 50-50 across the line?
Most abusers are male, but 25% of abusers are women.
And so therefore most of the abuse is committed against male or female children.
Well, statistics will show that 1 in 4 girls will be sexually molested by their 18th birthday, and 1 in 6 boys,
That's right.
sadly.
Richard, one of the things that I think is important to explain about the molester and why children don't report is you have to understand that the molester is a very manipulative person, okay? And they will groom not only the victim, but they will groom and seduce the family, okay? And they're very patient people. And what they do is they get to know the family, they get to understand, you know, the intricacies and intimate details about the family, and they use these tools to actually disarm children and the family of just the natural mechanisms. Because if you could imagine a person that gets to know a child's mother or father and gets to know the intimate details about how the child interacts with the mother or father, and then the child comes to know that individual as a close friend of the family's, the trust and the protection mechanism is disarmed. And the minute that mechanism is disarmed, the predator then begins to start the grooming process. And the reason why, you know, children refuse or are reluctant to reveal the secret is because the perpetrator understands how to either guilt the child or manipulate them through fear, or manipulate them through gifts, manipulate them through threats. If you do this, I'll tell your mommy, or if you do this, it'll kill your dad, you know. And the child, and remember, we're talking about children, so how they interpret these adult vehicles of manipulation are to conceal it, because they think that, you know, they don't want mommy to be hurt.
John, as I listen to you describing them, I am picturing a lion going after its prey, and the lion watching that prey, knowing what that prey is going to do. So I picture a child molester who sees a child and said, that's my prey. I'm going to go after that child. And the molester will look at that child, know the child's attitude, and then you say this person will even make friends with the family.
Exactly. See, one of the things about the molester is they are typically the best. They're typically well-liked. They are jovial. They are funny. They are, you know, humorous. They are personable. They are passionate. They are anything they need to be to have a presence around children. And because of their persona, people see them as, oh, that's the best coach you can ever have. And I would use the example at the University of Penn State, where Jerry Sandusky basically used a children's foundation to create a vehicle to give him access to children. And I would also use the most recent occurrence where Sir Jimmy Savile, who was knighted by the Queen, used a talent program to provide access to children. And it is now known that Sir Jimmy Savile was a serial child molester, where he had over 300 victims. Okay? And that is what a molester does. And the tragedy, Richard, is that people knew about these individuals' behavior. Jerry Sandusky, his behavior was known by an icon at the University of Penn State, a person that everyone respected. They built statues after the man, who was Joe Paterno. Okay? BBC knew, and they had instances of reporting of what Sir Jimmy Savile was doing. But people made a choice, and the choice wasn't to protect children. One of the things that Debbie and I talk about is that one of our fundamental beliefs is that the protection of children is an adult's responsibility, okay? And the other thing that we espouse is that child sexual abuse is a crime. And if a child or anyone reports the occurrence of child sexual abuse and you do nothing, it makes you an accessory to that crime.
We're going to take a break right there. This has been very interesting. Our director has been signaling me, but this is just so interesting. I did not want to interrupt John. So we'll take a break and be right back. Welcome back to Issues. This week we have John Bronson and Debbie Ray Rivers with us, and they're from the organization SCARS Bermuda. And we've been looking at child sexual abuse. We went to the break with John describing some of the characteristics of the molester. Now, John, parents in the home, are they supposed to be cautious of every friend, every aunt, every uncle that comes in? So as a parent, what am I looking for, and how do I react to my family and friends coming over? If they're too friendly with my child, am I cautious looking? So how am I supposed to react as a parent?
One of the things that we espouse, Richard, is that developing a trusting relationship is important to the development of a child. And so we don't want to build a society where people are distrusting of everyone and everything. But what we do think is important is there are tools that parents should arm themselves with regards to the protection of their children. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that anyone who has participated in our Stewards of Children training program, again, which teaches people how to recognize, prevent, and react responsibly, is the information and the tools that we provide really change the way they parent, number mm-hmm. one, or it changes the way they behave as a caregiver of children. And what the basis is and why it's important for adults to talk to their children and start early and talk often is you have to establish, boundaries. You need to let your kids know that it is okay to talk about the human anatomy in anatomically correct ways. So, often as parents, we teach our kids to say eyes, nose, mouth, and chin. That's a very easy nursery rhyme. But when we get beyond the chin and talk about the hands and the feet, and we start talking about the sexual organs, we tend to deviate from having an honest conversation, what they are. Mm-hmm. And we give them pet names. And so what we're saying to parents is you need to let your children know that it is okay to refer to their body parts by the correct name. Mm-hmm. And that's important in this day and age. We also espouse that it is important for parents to be entrepreneurial in how they converse with their children, especially with the issue of child sexual abuse. And the message has to be age appropriate. A parent wouldn't talk to a 5-year-old in the same way they would talk to a 15-year-old. Mm-hmm. So what we do offer is to say, define the bathing suit area. Every child has a bathing suit, and what we'll say to a child is that no one should ever touch you in your bathing suit area. Mm. And here's a very interesting thing also, is that not only should no one touch you, but if anyone ever does, you need to convey to your child that we're your parents and our job is to love and protect you. And if anyone ever should touch you in your bathing suit area, you should tell your mommy and your daddy. And if you do that, we would be happy that you do that, because we will believe you and we will do everything in our power to protect you. And I think the earlier you get that message out to your kids, the better and armed they are to protect themselves. And there's one other point, which is we also have to advise people that child sexual abuse is not always about touch. Okay? By definition, child sexual abuse can be exhibitionism, it can be voyeurism of other people's body parts, it can be exposing children to pornography. And in this day and age, where internet is a common tool to educate, sexual predators will have a presence there. They will be wherever they can to have access to children.
Thank you so much, John. I was really wrapped in what you were saying. Debbie, on your website, you have in bright red letters, Imagine, I-M-A-G-I-N-E. Tell us about that.
Sure, Richard. Well, the definition of imagine is to form a mental image. And what we at SCARS want people to do is to really imagine what it's like to be a child. And suddenly, you know, you're 9 years old, because 9 is the median age that children are sexually abused. So just imagine that you're 9 years old and a grandfather or an uncle or a soccer coach or a minister or a teacher begins to groom you and starts touching you in ways that feel uncomfortable. You know, a child might feel confused, like, why are they doing this? This doesn't feel right. We want the reader who goes on our website to imagine, you know, or an adult to imagine what it would feel like. You know, they may feel scared, you know, and you know, want it to stop, and it won't stop. Or they could feel guilty, because then they're going to say, what did I do to cause this? They may feel like they're responsible for it. You know, they could feel sad, like hopelessness, like, you know, this isn't ever going to stop. You can just, you know, I want people to wrap their mind around what it would feel like if you were a young child. Because what we see many times are adults, because children won't tell, so we see adults telling their story, but we have to go back and really think about that adult was a child. And, you know, and another emotion is anger, you know, because they feel like the abuser is an imposter, is a fake, because of course they're nice to everybody else, and they're violating their body. So there's a lot of anger that's attached to this.
You said something I found interesting, that sometimes the child will not even recognize that the abuser is doing something wrong to them. They may feel uncomfortable, but they might not think it's wrong because that's a good friend, that's my aunt, or that's my uncle. So I can see that. And as you were describing imagine, I was trying to imagine that. And I can feel myself just feeling different, feeling maybe dirty at times,
Yes.
but then maybe handicapped because I don't know who to tell this to. Who would believe me?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, Richard, sex feels good.
Yeah.
So that's another huge emotion, where you're feeling guilty because it can feel good,
Yeah.
and you don't understand because it is wrong.
Yeah. Now, here in Bermuda, I'm sure there are laws on the book in terms of sexual predators. And is there a statute of limitation that after X number of years, the individual, the molester, cannot be prosecuted?
I mean, luckily, and I say luckily, in Bermuda there isn't, and I have to stress, there is not a statute of limitation. And so, you know, what that means is any victim who recognizes and is at a point of their transition from victim to survivor that wants to address the issue of their sexual abuse, they have the opportunity to do that.
Oh, very good.
You know, I just wanted to add one more thing, Richard, which is just to tail end on to Debbie's definition of imagine, right? And it actually ties into the name of SCARS. And we also say, if a child walked out of this building right now and tried to walk across a crossroad and got hit by a bus, we know what people's reaction would be. Someone would go out there and say, dial 911. Somebody would try and, you know, console the child, get a blanket, cover them, make sure they're warm. You know, someone would call for the ambulance, you know, and then, you know, they would follow up to make sure that the child is okay. The parents would be notified. They would do all the things that, you know, we as caregivers of children would expect of ourselves to do. But the reality is, and imagine this, right? Child sexual abuse is like the equivalent of being hit by a freight train. The difference, Richard, is that child sexual abuse creates emotional scars. Okay? But this is the interesting dynamic. The reaction is similar. If you have a wound that is untreated, it can and runs the risk of becoming infected. And if left untreated, could lead to the ultimate, which is amputation. Okay? When it comes to emotional scars, if left untreated, it can become infected. And that infection translates into self-injurious behavior. Victims cut themselves. They have thoughts of suicide. They may even commit suicide. Victims, they retreat and escape to drugs. Okay? They resort to trying to find love in all the wrong places, which lead to teen pregnancy, promiscuity. And that's what the emotional scar can leave. The problem is that people don't see emotional scars. But I can tell you, child sexual abuse, the violation of an innocent child, is a life sentence. There's no do-overs. And so that's why it is important as parents and caregivers of children that we ensure that we do everything in our power to help that victim heal their wound and scar.
In the Royal Gazette, July 13, 2012 of last year, it was mentioned on a Facebook page that a Bermudian had started a Facebook page of convicted sex offenders. What is SCAR's reaction to that and to the creation of a sex offender directory?
Well, I can understand why the gentleman started. We don't know who he is, but I can understand because he's trying to protect others in the community. And I think a public sex offenders list is important. And what he has on his website, from what I understand, are convicted sex offenders that's placed in the newspaper. So it's not suspected sex offenders, it's convicted sex offenders.
So SCARS would advocate for a public sexual offender directory where the public could go to and actually see the names?
So, I mean, and I really think it's important to be very clear about our position. Our position is that we believe that a public sex offenders list is necessary in the community. But we also believe that there has to be a sensitivity to the victim. Okay, because in such a small community like Bermuda, if people hear the level of detail that is reported, it can easily be associated with who the victim is. And the knowledge of who the victim is can be just as traumatic as the abuse itself. So we as SCARS and our facilitators basically feel that the reporting of the data should say Mr. X is a convicted pedophile and has been sentenced to X amount of years. And that's it. All the detail. And that way you protect the identity and have a sensitivity to the victim. And we also believe that the victims are to determine when that detail is revealed because that's a part of their journey. And we hope that at some point in time in that journey of transitioning from victim to survivor, they have the courage to reveal who, for their purpose, their perpetrator was. But you know, some never make that transition. They are all continually and forever making that journey from victim to survivor.
Debbie, as we come to a close, just tell us again the meaning of SCARS and tell us if one should choose to get in touch with your organization for one of the training sessions or to come to their church or their school, how would they do that?
Well, SCARS stands for Saving Children and Revealing Secrets. Our website is www.scarsbermuda.com. And on our website, under our services, is training, and it lists all our workshops, which are once a month at Argus. But we are also very willing and would love to come to any sporting organization, any church, any school, anywhere in an organization that is entrusted with the care of children, we will come and bring the training to them. The training is free, thanks to our very generous donors who's donated the money, so it is now free. And they can contact us at our email address is training@scars.bm.
We want to thank John Bronson and Debbie Ray Rivers being with us this evening. We've looked at a very touchy and very serious subject, sex abuse among children. We've heard that the median age for children being sexually abused is 9 years old. We've heard that many abusers are relatives and close friends or family. And we've heard in terms of a directory for sexual abusers that SCARS would advocate just the name and just the length of time that people may be incarcerated, but no additional details, because those details might in effect reveal who the victim is. So this is a very serious subject. We would advise you to get in touch with SCARS, have them come to your organization and give a lecture, or even join their training session, and I'm sure that you will find it very beneficial. And we look forward to you joining us again next week here on Issues.